Hello there, good morning. My name is Macdonald, Amaran. So, as an expert, if I'd say with all humility in international law, intellectual property law as well, I should say I'm very interested in what's going on in the United States. And so, as a lawyer, you should listen, dissect, analyze. It's like taking your legal mind to the gym. Now, with regards to President Donald Trump's impeachment, this is my take. I've been following. I've listened to the defense lawyers of President Donald Trump, and I think they have done a fantastic job. I'm telling you, they've done a great job. Now, they have been able to, put up a brilliant defense if you listen to what they said. Now, the issue of quid pro quo, having listened to them, doesn't even arise with regards to President Trump. If at all it arises, it calls for questioning when it comes to former Vice President Joe Biden. Now, the point is, former Vice President Joe Biden was in charge of a particular international work in Ukraine, and he was in charge of, supervising a lot going on there. He also had the power to release funds by way of aids and all of that. Could you believe that his son sat on the board of a company in Ukraine, a gas company or an energy company or so, that, the funds that Vice President Joe Biden was releasing to Ukraine had the potential, whether by government policy in Ukraine or what have you, of getting back to the hands of his son Joe Biden, who was being paid thousands and thousands of dollars for sitting on the board. And the monies he was being paid, the defense counsel of President Trump have been able to establish that his qualification were not in any way justifiable to those monies. In other words, it's not as if they were saying he wasn't qualified to sit on the board. He may be qualified, he is qualified, but the services he was producing, he couldn't speak Ukraine. They're not sure of that. It's not clear. It's not as if he was in the field in which that company runs, but he was sitting and he was being paid thousands of US dollars. Now, President Trump comes into office. Do not forget that there was a time where Vice President Joe Biden actually insisted. He bragged about it. He was on an interview with two other persons, and he said he gave the Ukrainian government 6 hours to fire the Attorney General, who was at that time investigating, and his investigation was going to extend to the company for which Vice President Joe Biden's son was sitting on the board. Now, I tell you what, President Trump comes into office. Do not forget that they eventually fired that Attorney General on the insistence of Vice President Joe Biden. He said he wasn't going to give them, I think, $500 million or so if they don't fire that particular Attorney General. President Trump comes into office and he says to the Ukrainian president, which he normally says to everybody, Trump is a businessman. We all know that. Trump doesn't like wasting money. He wants to justify his spendings. That's how he became a billionaire. You all loved him. You remember his Apprentice show. You were fired. You all loved him. Suddenly people are hating on Trump. Why is that? Because there appears to be a narrative to that effect. I'm not saying Trump is a perfect man, but Trump is working really hard. And he comes in and he puts a call through or whatever. They call each other or they speak on the phone. And the issue of, I'm hearing so many things about this going on with regards to the president's son and this and that. You might want to look into it. That kind of conversation. The president of Ukraine has come to say he didn't feel pressured. The issue of quid pro quo doesn't arise for President Trump. If it arises for anybody, in my view, it should be Vice President Joe Biden. It is my conclusion, my irresistible, cogent, vehement conclusion that President Donald Trump ought to be discharged and acquitted. having listened to his defense counsel. The case that was made by those who intend to impeach him ought to fall like a pack of cards. This is my view. It's lacking in merit. There is no evidence to substantiate their claim, in my view. This is my position. And I think President Donald Trump ought to be discharged and acquitted. He hasn't done anything wrong. Quid pro quo doesn't arise. Thank you. Bye-bye.